Alright guys, so welcome to the video on aggregate functions in DAX and Microsoft Power BI desktop. So in the last class we have looked at how to make use of logical functions such as if and switch, and to see how they can play out and also make your reports to be rich. Now we're going to be learning how to make use of the aggregate functions in Microsoft Power BI desktop. So firstly, we have learned how to create tables, how to create columns in Microsoft Power BI desktop. So if you can remember, in the first video, I made emphasis on the fact that we can use the DAX functions to create tables, columns, and measures. So that means we are only left with creating measures now. So what is a measure and how does it, what is the difference between a measure and columns and tables? So remember, when we created a table is like the major entity that holds the columns. So we use the columns to populate a table. So when it now comes to columns, as you can see, for example, so any calculations that you're doing inside of your table is going to be working on the row basis. So when you create a column for anything, then it's going to be calculating based on the row. Let's say, for example, I'm creating a new column inside of my financial data set. So by default, a sales column has been calculated, which has the actual value that we want to calculate. But let's say, for example, we want to calculate the total sales in a situation whereby our data does not have the total sales. So if your data does not have the total sales, we can simply say something like equals to and say the sales price. So we have the sales price and then we have the unit sold. Now this is basically saying that they are selling a singular product at 350. There is no currency as of now. So it can be anything. You want to venture into a particular business, you bought 2 pens and the pen cost you a particular amount, then you sold 2 pens for $50 each. So if you sell 2 pens for $50 each, that means the total amount of money that you have is going to be 100, which is basically 50 times 2. So in this case too, we have the sales price, which is 350, which is the unit price of each product. And in this case, they sold 1,513 in quantity. So to get the total sales, we are basically going to say the sales price multiplied by the asterisk, multiplied by the unit sold. So if we multiply the sales price by the unit sold, then we are going to be getting the total sales. So we're basically going to have the total sales column here. As you can see, when I did the calculation, I am having the calculation based on each row. So that means when you create a column operates based on the row context. So everything you are calculating, or whatever your calculation is going to be coming in rows. So let me create a new column and call it the total cost. So what is the total cost that the company has? So if I have the total cost equals, so we have the manufacturing price. The manufacturing price basically is how much it costs you to break or to make a particular product. So in this first scenario or instance, the total amount that they spent on this particular product is $3 each, and they produced 1,513 of it. So that is basically going to be manufacturing price multiplied by the unit sold. So we want to know how many in total, or how much in total did we use to create each of the products. So now we have 4,539, and then we sold them for 52,000 or 529,550. That's a very amazing sales there. So if we want to get the profit, so this is how much we sold, this is the total revenue, then we have the cost. So if we want to get, let's say for example, the net profit, so that means after we have remove all the costs, how much do we have left? So let's call this net profit. So we call this net profit equals, that we basically just say total sales that we just calculated minus the total cost. So if we do the subtraction, then we're going to have the profit. So the profit that we have based on this company is 52,501, and so on and so forth. So this is how much it cost us to make a particular product, and this is how much that we are spending based on the unit sold. So in that case, as you can see that all our calculation is coming up in the row sense. That is, we calculate something, then it's giving us each row on the total value. But when it comes to, let's say for example, we want to get the total sales as a singular value. Now we are saying that, okay, the total sales is 529,550, 352,100, and so on and so forth. Then what is the grand total of all the total sales? What is the revenue of the company? Now to do that, you simply create a measure. So a measure allows you to summarize or aggregate all your information or your values that you have in a column. So measures allows you to summarize a column or allows you to aggregate a column. So in this case, let me call this guy a revenue. So let me call it revenue. Now in this case, we are creating a measure now as against to the column and tables. So revenue is going to be sum. If you're familiar with sum, so that means summarize, add everything together inside of total sales. So I want to add everything up inside of total sales so that I can have the total amount that we've spent or that we generated in total. So if I drop the revenue, so don't forget we are using a card to populate and to show a singular value. So down, this guy is telling me that the total amount generated is 127.93 million. Now let's say for example we want to know for the cost, what is the total cost that that cost the company to make all of this product. So I can simply say new measure, then I'm going to call this the overall cost or running cost or cost of operation, anything, cost of operation. So let me call it COO, cost of operation, or let me just simply type it out. So cost of operation, so cost of operation, so equals the sum of the cost, so the sum of the total cost. Then I'm going to have a singular value that summarizes all the cost of operations together. So if I drop this guy inside of it, then it tells me that the total amount that we spent making this product is 106.66 million. Then if I decide to say, hey, you know what, let us do the total profits, then what is now the profit left? Because when we say that we have 127.93 million, you might think this company is making a lot of money. But until we calculate the cost, then I'll say, oh, we actually invested this particular amount on this thing, so we may actually not be making enough profit as you think. So if I call this net profit, then I say equals to sum of the profit. So sum of the net profit that I calculated, I calculated the net profit. Then if I run this, then it's going to calculate the net profit. Now let me bring it in, then and see what is the net profit. Then it's saying that the net profit is 21.27 million. So if you add 21.27 million to the cost of operation, then it's going to give you the total amount that you have. So out of 127 million that you generated, then the total profit that you have inside of the money is just 21.27 million. So this is an example of what the sum or the measures can actually do for you. We can go ahead and calculate more things. Let's say we want to know the highest sales as far as the financial data set is concerned. So if I say highest sales, the highest sales equals, then I can say max. So what is the max of the sales? Or what is the max of the total sales? So what is the max of the total sales? Then it's going to calculate, let me create a new card, then bring in the highest sales, then it says 1.21 million. Then I can go ahead and create or calculate for the lowest sales. So what is the lowest sales that the company generated? So the lowest sales equals mean in this case now. So what is the mean? What is the mean of the total sales? What is the minimum total sales that the company generated? So if you run it on CAD, then you are basically going to see that this is the minimum, 1.80 thousand. So that is the minimum sales by the company. So we can go ahead and say, hey, you know what, let's calculate the average. What is the average? All of these measures that we are calculating are going to be aggregating and giving us a singular value. So if we say average or AVG sales, average sales, so we can say equals to the average of the sales, so which is the total sales that we are working with. So what is the average of the total sales? Then on the card, then it just tells us 182.76 is the average sales. Then let's do maybe the counting. So what is the total count? So we can say total transaction. We can call it total transaction, total trans. So what is the total transaction? Then equals count sales. So count the total sales. We can count anything in this case. We can count the customer name, the customer product, because this guy is going to be counting the row basically. So every row is a transaction. So depending on any column that you try to reference there, you are still going to have the same result. So this is going to be the count of total transaction, sorry. So that is telling us that the total transaction is 700. That means the total rows that we have in that table is 700. So this is how we can make use of the basic aggregate functions in DAX. See you in the next video and see how we can make use of further integrators as an aggregate function. The sum x, average x, min x, max x, and so on and so forth. See you in the next video.